Hey everyone, I'm excited to be here. I'm in California right now, and it is storming, raining outside, which is the reason I moved to Florida for the wintertime. But in today's episode of the Gratitude Podcast, I am so excited. I've got a new friend, a new guest, a new coach, Trey Humphreys here, and he's from an organization called Brand Builders Group. I haven't talked about this much at all on Facebook or Instagram or anyone with friends, but I've got this amazing friend, Ava, in New York, who has been working with this Brand Builders Group for now, I think she's on her second year, and she says her business has just exploded because of the wisdom, the coaching, the knowledge, the creativeness, the beauty of the people involved that have been coaching her. And I found the most amazing guy to be my coach. I didn't find him. He found me, or the organization found me. And I want to find out about it a little bit because we just had one session and we're actually having another session today, a strategic call. But Trey Humphreys is an incredible human being and I'm honored to have him here. So Trey, welcome to the Gratitude Podcast.
Thank you, sir. I'm excited to be here. I'm ready to get gratitude. I'm ready to live, love consciously. I'm ready to do all the things.
Love contagiously. Trey, first tell us a little bit about Brand Builders Group, because I hadn't heard about it until Ava told me a little bit about it. What is it?
Thanks for asking. So we have a company where we help people build their personal brands. And so we're a strategy firm. And we work with entrepreneurs, coaches, authors, speakers, people that really want to lean into building their personal brand so that they can get out and share some things they've learned, can share their message with the world, as well as drive leads to their current business, et cetera. So the company's been around for about 5 years, and we're having a blast helping people kind of really ramp up their personal brand.
And did they do it for you, or how did you get involved with this company?
Yeah, so it's very interesting. The company is based in Nashville, although we don't have an office. We're all remote. About 5 years ago, I heard the founder, Rory, him and his wife run the company. I heard him on a podcast with Lewis Howes, and they were talking about personal branding. And I was thinking to myself, wow, that sounds really cool. So at the end of the podcast, they offer a free call, and I took them up on the offer for the free call and had an hour conversation with Elle, who's one of the salespeople at the time, and they had just founded the company. And I was so impressed with what they were saying and how they strategically helped clarify kind of what I was all about and what I was trying to build, that I started sending all my friends to Brand Builders. And then 5 years later, I sold some of my businesses and was traveling around, and they were growing, and decided to jump on board with them as a strategist. And so I've always been a fan, and now I'm a part of the team.
Okay, so what is your brand? What were you trying to do? What have you accomplished in the last 5 years?
Well, where do we begin? I don't know about you, but my life journey has been zigzag, curvy, up and down, all over the place. And so when I was in college, I wanted to be a veterinarian. However, the vet school and I didn't see eye to eye when it come to them letting me in. They claimed my grades were too low. I thought a 3.0 was outstanding, but they didn't. And so that dream was foiled. And when I was in college, you might find this amusing, I was the mascot at the school. And so I was just running around having fun at the sports games and doing my thing. So when I graduated and I wasn't going to be a vet, I thought to myself, now what am I going to do? I graduated with a degree in zoology, which will get you nowhere. I did intern at the Atlanta Zoo and took care of the gorillas and the orangutans for a while, which was fascinating. But I started calling professional teams, and eventually I signed on as a professional mascot with a team in the NFL. Did that for 12 years, and while I was doing that, started some businesses in Atlanta and had a lot of fun. And so all of that has led me to my brand. And we always tell people, everybody's got a brand. You are a brand, whether it's what people think of you when they think of you, right? And so my brand has always been about entrepreneurship and adventure and connection. I wrote a book about love a few years ago. And so that's kind of been my brand, and I've been building that for forever and kind of leaning into it. So it's been a wild ride, but I love travel. I love seeing new places, new people. I love the experiences, new experiences. And so all of that is wrapped up in what I would call my personal brand.
I've got so many questions now. First of all, I want to know, what mascot were you? Were you a Falcon?
I was the Atlanta Falcon for many years. I did the Dirty Bird about 1 million times over the course of several years. I got to travel all over the world, which was amazing, and meet cool people and dance around and sweat a lot. So that was my gig for 12 years.
Were you there with Deion Sanders?
I was there. He was not there. I was there when Jamal Anderson, the Dirty Bird guy, was there. And yeah, I was there from like 98, 7 or 8 to 2010 or 11 or 12 or something.
So what was your signature thing, the Dirty Bird thing?
Well, that was his signature thing. And so all the kids, all the fans would ask me to do the Dirty Bird over and over and over. But no, man, I just like to, have fun. I was more of a comedic mascot, because if you think about the NBA, there's the acrobatic mascots that do the flips and the dunks and all that. Yeah. Not me. I am not acrobatic. So I would just get up in the stands and do skits and all kind of stuff like that.
Well, that's really cool. Now, you also mentioned that you wrote a book about love a few years ago. Tell me about that. What's it called?
Yeah, so I wrote a book called Love is Bananas, and it's one man's journey to figure out the most mysterious word in the world. And what happened was, about 10 years ago, I was kind of at a rock bottom, to be honest. I had a few businesses in Atlanta, and they were all flat or doing poorly. I was in a bad place. I was depressed, etc. And I didn't know what to do. So I thought to myself, I know what I'll do. I'll hire a business coach. Clearly, a business coach can fix my life. Because at that point, I'd never been to therapy or anything like that, and I'd never had any coaching, to be honest. So I hired this business coach. And the way he worked was, it was a half day session. So we would go out there and, for about 3 or 4 hours, work on stuff. And I just remember sitting in that room. It was out in his house. He had an office, and he's whiteboarding all my businesses and thinking through all this stuff. And I was just flat. I was just sitting in the corner thinking, just not good. And so about halfway through, a couple hours in, I could tell he was trying to figure it out. I wasn't getting anywhere. And eventually he said, all right, why don't we do this? Why don't we take a break? I'm going to grab some coffee, and let's just shake it off, and we'll start back in a few minutes or whatever. But while I grab the coffee, why don't you just, for fun, write your definition of love on the whiteboard? I was like, all right, I can do that. I can't figure out any of my businesses or why I'm in such a funk, but I can at least answer that question. So I thought about it, and I wrote my answer up there. And when I wrote it, I kind of took a step back and was like, oh, man. And then he came back in, and he saw it, and he was like, oh, wow, maybe we should start there. And I wrote, love is the worst hell on earth. And when I wrote that, everything in my life made sense up until that point. Like all my childhood stuff, and my business is not working, my relationship's not working, everything when I answered that question, everything in my life made sense. And I was like, well, I've got to change that. I don't want it to be like that. So then I went on this journey to figure out what is love, and how do I change that, and how do I lean into it, and kind of work through some of my stuff. And eventually that led to the book, because I was just going around asking people, what is love? What's your definition of love? How many times? I just kept asking people over and over and over. And so eventually I wrote a book about kind of my journey and the things I've learned, and it's kind of a memoir type thing as well. Yeah, and that's kind of been a big part of my personal brand, is love and connection, because that's the thing I'm trying to learn and get better at. And I think, to me, it's the only thing that matters in the whole world is if we can connect with others and love. I know that's a big part of what you're about. That was the book journey. And I will say this, I cannot spell at all. So I am the last person that should be writing a book, but I wrote it, which means anybody listening to this, you can write a book, It's a lot easier than it used to be. There's lots of cool technology that make it more affordable, and I think everybody should write a book, 100%.
Yeah. So what's your definition of love now?
You know what? I'll be honest. I asked probably 1,000 people what their definition of love was, and nobody answered. No one had the same answer. People in the West talked a lot about romance and unconditional love, and that doesn't really ring true for me. And so a couple of wise people, I asked a rabbi, one of the top rabbis in Georgia, and then I asked a man who was 105 years old. And both of them said there is no definition, which I was like, all right, I can get behind that. I can get behind that. But I read a quote by the Dalai Lama, and the closest I can get to what love is in my mind that makes sense, the Dalai Lama said, love is the absence of judgment. And for some reason, that really stuck with me. And if I can stand before someone and not judge them one way or another, just see them and accept them, to me, that's love. So that's about the closest I've got. I'm still working on it. So if you've got it, what is your definition?
Well, it's interesting that this is fascinating discussion because my son asked me this question about a year ago or so, and we have continued this discussion. And my answer has been evolving, but I want to ask you about the judgment part because right now I'm sort of into the Abraham Hicks world, and a large part of that is talking about this idea of not having judgment any longer. And I just want to ask you, is that possible? Can a human, in the human form, can you really not have judgment?
Yeah, I don't think it's possible. I think it's innately ingrained in us to judge that keeps us safe, right, from caveman days. However, for me, anyway, part of my challenge was, back in the day, I never quote unquote loved myself. I mean, I probably hated myself in the past, which is like a big challenge for me. And so not judging others, but not judging myself, it was the beginning of the self-love, of the self-appreciation, of the self-acceptance, which a lot of us go through, I believe. And so while I think it's impossible not to at any point judge, but if we can be aware of it, and if I can be aware of it, and when it comes up, I can let it go a little bit, then I think that is the act of loving.
Yeah.
As far as I can process it. And an interesting thing, so I always ask people 3 questions when I was writing that book. What's your definition of love, which we've talked about? How many times have you been in love? And do you love yourself? And I don't know why I kept asking those questions, but I asked tons of people. And most people on how many times have you been in love said 2 or 3. I mean, if they were 80 or 15, it usually was 2 or 3, which was fascinating. And then when I asked people if they loved themselves, shockingly, 80% of the people said no,
Wow.
which was eye-opening to me. I was like, oh, wow, that's a big deal, right? So how do we help people kind of bridge that gap? It started to pop up in my mind. How do we? I don't know really about loving yourself. That's a foreign concept to me, but appreciating, accepting, being kind to yourself, I think is important, and I think those are all qualities of love. So yeah, it was very interesting, very, very interesting.
So hold on, did you just say you don't know about self-love, about loving yourself, or did you discover that?
When people say self-love, I have a hard time with that phrase. It doesn't make sense to me. Now, self-kindness, self-acceptance, self-esteem, confidence, all of that stuff makes sense to me. But self-love, do you love yourself? And maybe I'm just not there yet, but it just feels like it almost creates a negative, because if we think we're supposed to love ourselves and that's too heavy, does it force us the other way? Do we worry about it? Do we beat ourselves up for quote unquote not loving ourselves? So I don't know. I'd love to hear what you think about it, but it's kind of a foreign phrasing to me.
And this is so interesting to me. One of the things that I do is I'm a hypnotherapist. And in my hypnotherapy work, while I haven't asked necessarily the questions that we're posing for people, almost every issue that I've dealt with always it comes back to a lack of self-love or self-esteem or thinking people are worthy or deserving. Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter. And there's like 156 different issues that hypnotherapy is really great for. But it always comes down to that people don't really love themselves. That's why I've gone on this journey in what I call loving contagiously, and contagiously starting with yourself and then extending to other people, and not just loving 2 or 3 people, because I get that answer too. I think that's maybe the answer to what romantic love might be. But in loving more and more people, the last guest, or I think the guest, my podcast guest that actually goes live today, Dr. Sylvia Fernandez, she has this process where she actually loves every single person. And she goes around the world loving on every single person. And it's been amazing to just watch her and learn from that. And, that's one of the real values of podcasts. I know you probably have a podcast. I have lots of people that we know have podcasts, and they talk to incredible people, and we learn from them, and we learn about different things. And that's what's so fascinating about this process. I'm going to get your book and read it, though, because I think that's an amazing thing that I didn't know about you. It's pretty cool. How can we get your book?
Yeah, it's on Amazon. You just go to Amazon and grab it. Yeah,
that's what
I don't know
do.
If you've heard of Amazon. It's a website. It's a website. I think it's a small website that
I'll Google it and see if I can find it.
Yeah. But so you get the Kindle version or the hard copy or whatever. It's kind of fun.
I like hard copy, but so what is the conclusion from it? And then I'm going to go on to a different subject, but I think this is just fascinating. What's your conclusion for people, for our audience here, about self-love or love or anything? What's your conclusion?
A couple of things. My last interview, I was in Tulum, Mexico, and I was interviewing this woman who is a sex coach, and she had a fascinating story. But after the interview, she asked me, she goes, well, what have you learned about writing this book and interviewing all these people? And no one had asked me that, and I hadn't even really thought about it. And I said, well, I'm still trying to figure out this love thing. But the what I think is connection is the only thing that matters. And I think that a life shared is better than a life alone. That's the truth that I've landed on, whether that's a best friend, a family member, a dog, a romantic partner. I think a life shared is better than a life alone. That's kind of what I came out of that with. And then, as far as the self-love stuff, what I tend to tell people and my practice is, can we be kind to ourselves? Meaning, can we treat ourselves like we would treat a friend? And not like a best friend, but just like a friend. Just how do you treat a normal friend? You're usually pretty kind. You probably say kind things. And if we can start there, and if I can start there, I think that's the key. I think that's the key. And so those are some things that came out of it for me.
Yeah. So one of the things that I like to talk about and actually teach in some of my trainings is that it's important to become conscious of our unconscious. Because, when we're speaking, for example, when I'm speaking to you, you're speaking to yourself 4 times faster than I can speak to you. And when I stop, you actually speed up to 6 times faster than I can speak to you. We don't really notice that, but that's what we're doing. And we're saying things to ourselves. Now, if we could actually really learn by becoming conscious of our thoughts to be kinder to the things that we say to ourselves, it would be a really good thing to do. And maybe that's the start of self-love. I don't know. I'm actually still searching for that definition, because I want to answer my son, because he has this question. He wants to know what love is. And I'm going to have him watch this and listen to this podcast, because it might trigger some interesting journey for himself to go start asking that question. I think it's awesome.
I love talking about it. It's very fascinating. So whatever you find out, let me know. And I'll tell you this. This is one of my other conclusions from the book. If somebody can figure out how to teach people how to love themselves effectively, you'll heal the world, literally. You'll heal the world. Yeah. But I think it's not easy to teach somebody that or to help them through that journey. But yeah, it can be a game changer for sure.
Okay, so now you've got this as the basis. And what other businesses do you have besides working for a brand builders group? Do you do speaking? Do you do events? What else do you do, Trey?
Yeah, I'm a shiny object guy. So when I see something cool, I want to do it, which I don't know if that's the best way. But live in Atlanta, Georgia. I have a restaurant here in Atlanta, still have a restaurant. And then I have a bar, a little speakeasy bar here in Atlanta. And then I have some real estate. I also do speaking. I go around and do speaking as well. And I run a mastermind for some folks where we travel around and do a traveling mastermind once a quarter, which is a lot of fun. And other than that, I write a blog and trying to think of what my next book's going to be about. So really, I love meeting interesting people. And by that, I mean unique oddballs. I love oddballs. I love the weirdos. I want to meet the craziest people in the world, and I want to ask them about love and life and all these things. So love traveling. That's my thing. And love to meet people that are so far different than me that it just rocks my perspective on things.
Wow.
So yeah, I got a lot of stuff in the hopper, and I guess that's what we do. I don't know if it's a good thing or not, but it keeps me busy.
Okay, tell me about the restaurant. Like, how did you go from being the Atlanta Falcon to owning a restaurant and bar in Atlanta? I get the Atlanta connection, but what kind of restaurant? Like, how did that happen?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we can always connect the dots backwards. So if I look back, and part of personal branding is figuring out who we are, what our uniqueness is, what are our talents and our passions, and how do we lean into those gifts to help others, really is what we're all about at Brand Builders. And so if I look backwards and, doing the work in my own personal branding, I'm an entrepreneur. I've always been an entrepreneur, and I love providing unique experiences that bring people together and create, I guess, what you call happiness. So, when I was a mascot, I was just making people laugh all the time. And then I've done some improv comedy, which was making people laugh and the experience. And I was a DJ for a while in the clubs, and that was, energy and a lot of experience. So I love creating environments and experiences for people, which I always wanted to open a restaurant because people love restaurants. I love restaurants. I grew up in restaurants. So partnered up a couple of guys, and we opened a restaurant. I bought a dive bar back in the day, and had an event company. So everything looking backwards, all the things I was attracted to were these experiences where people can come and have a good time. That has helped clarify for me, experience and adventure and stuff are really what I'm all about. And so, yeah, it was just kind of a natural progression. I love to eat out. I love eating food. I was an only child. And when Mom and I got to go to Applebee's once in a while, I thought it was the greatest thing in the entire world. So I've always been fascinated with restaurants and entertainment and stuff.
What's the name of your restaurant?
Restaurant's called Cheeto and Padres. It's in Buckhead in Atlanta. It's kind of Baja Mexican concept. We have a smoker, so all our meats are smoked. It's really good. And good margaritas, good tacos, the whole 9 yards. And then behind it, I have a speakeasy, which is called The Blind Pig, which is a lot of fun. And right now, it's currently a Christmas pop-up. So we just put all the Christmas stuff everywhere in there, and Christmas drinks and all that. So yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. People should check it out.
Okay, I know that we do have some listeners from Atlanta, and next time I go through Atlanta, I'm going to go to your place and check it out. That's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'll meet you there.
Okay.
I'll treat you to some tacos.
All right. So what's the weirdest person you've ever met?
Oh, that's a great question. So when I was writing my last book, I interviewed, let's see, who did I interview? I interviewed a fourth generation snake handling preacher up in West Virginia or Kentucky somewhere. He was amazing. What a fascinating story. He'd been bitten 9 times by poisonous snake. His father was a preacher. He'd been bitten 10 and passed away. His grandfather had been bitten a few times. He passed away, snake bite. And this guy was 27 and had been
They
bitten
passed
9
away
times
from the
to
snake
survive.
bite? They passed away from the snake bite? Holy tamale. Wow.
So they handle the snakes in this little church, and if they get bit by a snake, they have to wait it out. It's God's will. They don't go to the hospital, and sometimes they survive, sometimes they don't. So I've interviewed him. I interviewed a 105-year-old man. I interviewed, all the religious figures. I interviewed a guy in Yemen who was fascinating. I interviewed some voodoo folks in West Africa, which was fascinating. I interviewed the leader of the Satanic Church in Atlanta, which was fascinating. I've interviewed kids, all kinds of fun people. I just think that a lot of our life lessons can be learned from people that live a little differently, because what I found in every single one of those people was a lot of love in every one, right? And so I've interviewed people with drug addictions, and, people that have been shot a bunch of times, all kinds of stuff. And I usually ask them about love and life. And it's just fascinating to hear what they say. And it helps me adjust my perspective on things and learn how to connect with people. So for the most interesting person, man, there's a lot of them.
Well, what I really love about what you're doing is you mentioned the word connection. You like connecting to people, and that the interviewing. You're using the word interviewing, but as you're speaking, I'm thinking that you have a really curiosity kind of mind, and that's one of the characteristics that I'm trying to develop more and more in me. I think it's kind of a key thing to connection. The more curious you are about people, about yourself, the more you can develop connection, not just with people, but with yourself. Like, why did I do that? Like, why did I become the Atlanta Falcon? Or why did I go into that bad place 10 years ago? Or why did I become asking those questions, I think, is a really, really cool thing to do. Curiosity. Let's develop it, audience out there. What do you think?
I think storytelling is the number one skill a human being can have. I think it's the greatest thing in the world. That's why I love speaking. I love writing. I love storytelling. And so when I meet with these people, I'm just so fascinated hearing their story. Just so fascinating. And I think when we tell our story, it allows other people to connect with us. And when we hear other people's story, we usually connect with them, Yeah. And so just hearing their stories and then, sharing it with the world is so fun for me. But I do think it all boils down to, it just helps us connect with ourselves, with each other. Who are we without people, right? We're not even a self if there's no one else. And so fascinating stuff.
Yeah, and I've heard the concept of storytelling from a lot of people, including from Tony Robbins. How would you advise someone that has a mindset that I don't have any stories, I don't know how to tell stories? How would you advise those kind of people, or maybe even just someone that does have stories? How would you advise them to develop their storytelling abilities, capabilities, experience? What would you tell that person?
I would reemphasize, I believe storytelling is the number one skill we can have. And I would suggest they lean into story. We're all storytellers, meaning anytime we hang out with our friends, we're telling stories. That's the only way we can really communicate is by telling stories. Like, this is what I did. I had a podcast with Robert today, and it was cool, and he was in California, and it was storming. Like, that's a story. And so we've all got stories in us, and we learn the best from stories, right? And so if you hit us with a bunch of facts, we'll forget them. But if you tell us a story, we'll usually remember it. And people that don't think they're good at storytelling, you could open your phone right now and go to the first picture in your camera roll, and you could tell a story about that picture easily. And so we all have the capability, but there are ways to become better, and I think that's important for people to kind of lean into it. Try public speaking, try writing, try starting a blog, try some of these things as you dip your toes into storytelling.
Just as you were speaking, I thought of something that I've started, I don't even know why, but maybe this might resonate with people. About a month or so ago, I decided to start writing a letter a one-page letter to my son every day, and I mail it.
Oh, wow.
And so it's a hard copy, and I've written him now for at least a month straight every single day. I don't miss a day. And you're right. That's what I'm doing. I'm telling him the story of what's going on in my life, and I'm trying to do it in a way where I'm imparting more connection, and some fatherly advice that I missed when he was a youngster, because I was busy working and doing my stuff and didn't know necessarily how to be the greatest father in the world. So I'm trying to catch up now in a very subtle way, so it doesn't come across as coaching or fathering. But there's a lot of different ways that we can develop. And you'd mentioned just writing, and I go, oh, I'm doing that. I didn't even know I'm doing that. Mm-hmm. So what?
Yeah, I think writing's one of the best ways.
Yeah, and I'm not a writer either. I always say English is my second language. I'm Hungarian, so I don't use the big words. In fact, my last podcast guest, Lori Beth Robbins, she uses these words that I've never even heard of, and I thought there'd be at least a dozen. And there was like 100 words that she used in our podcast. I had no idea what she said, and it's just kind of funny. But if you had to. If someone put you on a spot like now and said, tell us a story that's interesting, that might evoke some kind of emotion, or a journey on someone around love or connection or anything, what would a good story be right now?
Yeah, so I was attacked about probably 5 years ago. I was attacked in the woods, and it was bananas. And so I had volunteered to go over to Central Africa to help build a school on the largest chimpanzee conservation area in the world. And so it's just this massive, huge plot of land up in northern Zambia where they rehabilitate chimpanzees from the pet trade or get hurt in the wild, et cetera, et cetera. So they had massive fields that were like hundreds of acres that they would, the chimpanzees would live in. And so I was there helping build a school for some of the villagers that take care of the animals and so forth. And towards the end of my stay there, I was there for 2 weeks. The owner of the whole property said, I really appreciate you helping us out. Would you like to do a bushwalk with the chimpanzees before you leave? Well, of course I want to do a bushwalk with chimpanzees. Every kid on earth wants a chimpanzee when they're a kid, right?
Yeah.
And so I was like, yeah, of course. She's like, okay, well, meet us here. I'm going to put you with one of my guys, and you can do it tomorrow morning. Perfect. So I go there. I put on this blue schmuck. She stuffs my pockets full of these little cookie biscuits that they eat, and paired me with this villager guy. And she opens up this big metal door, and we go into this field, and it's just me and this dude. And the dude had a stick, which wouldn't help at all if anything happened. But prior to going into this field, she said, listen, if the chimpanzees mess with you, or if they don't fight them, don't do anything, they're a lot stronger than you are. Just relax, and we'll figure it out. Sure. So I go in, I'm in this field, these 3 huge chimpanzees come out of the woods, and they just beeline straight for me, and they dig in my pockets, and they're eating these cookies. And I'm sitting in this field with these huge, beautiful, amazing monkeys that are as tall as I am. They were adults, and they were really tall. And I'm thinking to myself, this is a dream come true. This is like this is unbelievable. And I remember just sitting there, and they would sit beside me, and we'd both look off into the distance. And I mean, I'm just shoulder to shoulder with these huge apes. So eventually the little guy, he's like, we go walk now. I was like, oh, great. So then we start walking through the woods on what they call a bushwalk. And so I got to witness the chimpanzees foraging for bugs and stuff as we walked along the trail. And at one point, there was a turn in the trail. And so the second that the guy was out of sight, one of them grabs my leg and starts ripping me into the woods and just pulling me into the woods. Now, mind you, these animals can lift up cars. They are massively strong. And so I'm thinking, oh my goodness, this is it. I'm a dead man. So he's pulling me into the woods. Another one jumps on my back. So now I've got a chimpanzee on my back. One of them's got my foot, and he's pulling me into the woods. No idea where the guy is. He's can't see him anywhere. And my heart's racing. I'm having a heart attack. I think I'm going to die. Well, the guy on the top starts messing with my head, and the one holding my foot lets go of my foot. And when he lets go of my foot, he reaches up, and I was wearing camouflage pants. He grabs my pants and rips my pants off in one swoop. I mean, clean off. So now I got a chimpanzee on my back. One of them just ripped my pants off, and I'm about to be murdered. They're going to scalp me. And then the guy finally turns the corner. And the second he turned the corner, they jump back in line like nothing happened. I'm having a full-blown heart attack. And the dude looks at me and says, what happened to your pants? So like, what do you mean what happened? I was almost murdered by these animals. And one of them's got my pants and he ran away. And so there I was, just me and a guy and some monkeys walking through the woods in my underwear. So that was a fun story. I didn't die, and I still have those ripped up pants. I have them framed for that experience. So yeah, that was a fun one. That was a fun one.
Wow.
And I learned never take your eyes off of wild apes. That's the lesson. That's the lesson we should all take home from this.
Wow.
So yeah, storytelling. I think we all have. It's the ones your friends want to hear over and over. It's the funny ones or the crazy ones. It's like, I heard someone say one time, if you want to be an interesting speaker, live an interesting life.
Yeah.
And I take it a step further. I think if you want to be an interesting person, which I think we all do, we want to be an interesting person because that attracts people and that helps us make friends and find lovers and all that stuff. I think we should live an interesting life, and that really starts with having unique experiences that we can tell stories about. So
yeah, it's so interesting, this discussion about experiences, because in our first session, our only session so far, we decided that my focus is going to be on experiences. And one of my experiences coming up, I'm taking a group of people to Vietnam, and on the fourth day, we are going to eat snake. You were telling the story about you're the pastor who is the snake charmer, not snake charmer, but that the father and grandfather died. We're going to go eat snake. I'm not sure that I'm looking forward to it, but it's going to be an experience, and it's going to lead to a great story, I'm sure.
100%. Who wouldn't want to hear that story? Of course. That's amazing. And it's going to be amazing. That's
going
awesome.
On experiences. So you had mentioned that you've got a lot of things in the hopper. Tell us about what's next for Trey. What's in the hopper? What are some of the things that you've got that you're looking forward to?
Yeah, so I love speaking and entertaining, so I'm going to continue to lean into that. I'm working through a show idea. Like my ultimate moonshot goal is to create a show that incorporates a lot of the things we've talked about, which is going around the world and sharing people's stories with the world. So I kind of have my eye on that. Definitely want to write another book because I like that process, and I think that's a fun thing to do. And then continue helping people build their personal brands, obviously, which is super cool, and get to work with all kind of fun people. And then I think I'm going to start a subscription membership letter writing business that I'm kind of working through. I'll let you know how it goes and when I launch, but it's going to be a unique way to connect people just like you're connecting with your son. I want to do that on a grand scale. And so I'm kind of working through some ideas there. So yeah, who knows? Maybe I'll buy a big farm. I don't know. Maybe I'll live at the beach like you. That's where I want it. That's what I want to do. I want to live at the beach.
Okay.
That's the goal.
You would leave Atlanta?
Oh yeah. I think this is what I thought. Maybe you had this idea. I was thinking, if we can choose kind of how we live, why would I not wake up and see the ocean as opposed to wake up and not see the ocean every day? And that's it. So
that's the way I feel.
Let's figure out a way to get to the ocean. Yeah, I think it's awesome. We should all design our lives.
So Trey, if someone wanted to find out about
fun.
Exactly, and that's what I call living rad. But if someone wanted to find out about Brand Builders Group, how would they find out about that or find out about you?
Yeah, sure. You can go to brandbuildersgroup.com. obviously, and lots of information there. You can find me anywhere. All my socials are Trey, Trey goes global. Trey goes global. So love to connect with people on social media of any kind. Or my website is iamtrey.com. And so people can go there and find out a little bit more. At the end of the day, just trying to connect with people and grow personally and help others grow as well, and serve folks with this personal branding strategy and some of the other activations that I do on my own. Yeah. So I love to connect with anybody. Reach out. Let's talk about love. Let's talk about adventure. Let's talk about experiences. Let's talk about personal branding.
Very cool.
Everybody's got a story to tell.
Very
Let's
cool.
tell it. Everybody's got a story to tell. Let's tell it.
Exactly. I think a lot of people in our audience might have interest in this. So I think it's kind of cool. In fact, if anyone's listening, you want to join, I'm just starting. So maybe you could be in the same class that I'm doing for the next year. I've signed up for a full year program with Brand Builders Group. I'll probably be going to my first event in January, February in Nashville. And if anyone's interested in building your brand and becoming a better storyteller or letter writer, an author, a event doer, an entrepreneur, reach out to Brand Builders Group and or Trey Humphreys. And I guarantee you it's going to be an amazing experience and you'll have great stories from it. So Trey, last message, last advice, last word is for you.
The last word is for me.
Yeah.
So the last word is if anybody out there listening, I want to connect with unusual people. So if you have an unusual story or you know somebody with an unusual story, let's connect. You never know. You might be in my next book or on my future show, or we might become best friends. So I just want to meet people with unusual and interesting stories. So that's my last word.
Well, that's really, really cool. And I know that I have a lot of unusual friends, so you might be getting inundated with people, and I hope that that's the case. Trey, it's been an honor and pleasure to have you here. I look forward to talking with you in a few hours, talking about strategy, about my personal branding.
Yeah.
And I'm excited that I've got a new friend in you, and I'm guessing we're going to go travel the world and meet unusual people and connect. So thank you very much, Trey Humphreys.
I'm ready. Thank you, sir. Enjoy it, and we will talk soon.